on this Friday, recapping what the Eagles did in the first round, and it was a hell of a night, that's for sure. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. We are joined by the man who was hanging with us last night for the JAKIB Draft Special from Ocean Casino Resort, brought to us by the local IBEW 98 crew. The man himself, Seth Joyner. Seth, long time no see, man. How you doing?
For real. For real.
Yeah, Seth, we were kind of walking through it, you know, Derek and I and Barrett, obviously, you know, doing his thing with his shows as well. But I'll ask you the same thing I posed to these guys. You have a day to think about it a little bit, or at least a night to think about it. How surprised are you that they were able to net both of these guys in the first round without giving a ton up?
Well, I think the way that the round fell is you can call it fortunate for the Eagles and Howie Roseman. You know, Howie didn't have to do a whole lot of wheeling and dealing. We know how much he liked to wheel and deal, how much he probably wanted to wheel and deal. But I thought that the restraint that he showed last night to sit pat and let those picks fall to him was extraordinary. I think when you have three quarterbacks that come off the board in the first four picks, then, you know, the unusualness of having two running backs to go in the first round and two linebackers, you know, not edge rushers, but linebackers to go in the first round, that pushed a lot of talent to the back half of the draft. You know, I was emailing with Ray Didinger this morning, and, you know, he was shocked. You know, we've been talking about who we thought the Eagles should draft and what they do at 30. And Ray said, you know, I just knew that Howie was going to trade back out of 30, you know, and get some more assets. But the way that the talent pool just continued to get pushed back, you know, into the later round, there was just no way. I mean, all he had to do was sit there. You know, he was going to get, you know, something substantial at 30. And it was just an unusual draft because you usually don't see that. But those anomalies, those two running backs and those two linebackers, and then the run on the wide receivers, the four wide receivers, boom, 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 boom in a row, just upset the apple cart because that meant that all of that defensive talent that didn't get picked before them got pushed further back. So to be able to walk away, you know, with the best defensive tackle in the draft, probably one of the best defensive tackles in the last, potentially since Aaron Donald. And time will tell, you know, whether the maturity will set in and whether he can realize that talent. But you don't have very many defensive tackles that, you know, play the run, can dominate the run and dominate the pass. And I bring up Aaron Donald because he does that. And then you get an edge rusher, a guy that you don't have to bring in and play right away, but a guy who gets to learn under the tutelage of a Brandon Graham and a Hassan Reddick, and the versatility that it gives the defense. This is the thing that excites me about the Nolan Smith, because he's more athletic, I think, in drop coverage, probably than Hassan Reddick.
Yep.
But last year, he was the main guy in drop coverage anytime they were in the five-man front. So now you can play games. You know, it could be Nolan Smith. It could be Hassan Reddick. Listen, you could drop both of them out of the five-man line and bring the two inside backers. I mean, there's so much creativity that draft pick gives them now that Sean Desai can do some very creative and some very innovative things when you have those two guys on the field because of their athleticism at edge rushers.
Well, let me ask you this then. Is it with the draft picks they just picked up, does that point you in any direction from a 4-3 to a 3-4, 50 front, 30 front? What do you think with the drafting those two guys, the direction Desai is going to go?
Well, B, I think that their base is going to be 40. The problem is they couldn't stop the run out of the 40 last year. Does that change? I don't know. I think the reason why you saw them play so much 50 front last year, I think that Nick Sirianni, and not Nick Sirianni, but Jonathan Gannon, I think that's part of their game plan. I think it was the part of their game plan to be, you know, multiple from a front standpoint. And you can be extremely multiple, you know, with a five-man front, because it's not just a true 30 front. you can run unders and overs from a 5-man front.
Yep.
And whoever the outside backer is, whether it's, BG on one side or Sweat on the other side or Hassan Reddick, that guy just turns into the Sam backer. So you have that flexibility. So every 5-man front isn't necessarily a 5-man front because you're running unders and overs out of that 5-man look. But because they couldn't stop the run out of the 4-man front, they were forced to play a lot more 5-man front. And I think that you can play Jordan Davis in a 1, a 2-eye, a shaded, head up 2. You can do all of those things, but the minute you lost him as your nose tackle last year, it really showed how weak you were at being able to stop the run. So I don't think that they're going to be one or the other. I think they're going to be a combination. And like I said, it gives them great versatility when you get into passing situations to be able to add Nolan Smith to the mix. I mean, can you imagine their NASCAR package next year?
Mm.
You got Hassan Reddick on one side. You got Josh Sweat when he knows that it's passed. He can rush the passer, he can bring it. But can you imagine having Nolan Smith on the other side, him and Hassan Reddick on the outside, and then Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham dropping down, inside. That NASCAR package can be nasty.
That's not NASCAR. That's F1. That's called the F1 package. F1.
Yeah, but B, think about it. Even if you want to go 5-man and play games, I mean,
Yep.
My mind has just been racing 1,000 miles a minute because it's not just the draft picks for me; it's the strategy and how I start playing with all of these pieces.
Absolutely.
Like, can you imagine? Think about this in a passing situation. You got Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick on the same side.
Oof.
On the same side.
Reminds me of my back in the day when I was playing against Pittsburgh, and I got Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd, and they lined them both of the cats up on one side and ran games with them. Tough.
The games that you can run and the protections that you have to prepare to take care of that kind of pass rush and passing situations. And like I said, you go a NASCAR package, 5-man NASCAR package, okay? Because you got your 2 corners back and you solidified at the slot. The only question you have is, do you have a coverage linebacker and do you have safeties on the back end? But if you can answer those questions, think of the creativity that you can do with a 5-man NASCAR package. You got Brandon Graham, you got Fletcher Cox, and you got Jalen Carter on the inside. And on the outside, you got Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith. And the games and the things that you can run, man, I'm telling you, it'll strike fear in teams' hearts.
Seth, as we talked about last night on the draft show, and I said now the most intriguing thing to me is, can Sean decide in this revamped coaching staff coach them up properly? Because, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you and Barrett talk about playing the games they can play, the wealth of talent they have, and I'm salivating, but it all comes down to one thing. What does Deshaun decide do with them? How does he utilize them? Is he the right man with this revamp? Because it's hard when you replace a coordinator. But they replaced the coordinator and other pieces to that defensive equation, and now you got to try to bring it all together with holdovers and with these new pieces. I think, to me, that's the most intriguing thing now.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Part of the issue is Jonathan Gannon ran, and I don't want to call him a disciple of Vic Fangio, but the way that he thought about the game was Vic Fangio-ish. Sean Desai coached right beside the man, okay? And there are times where, Vic Fangio can be a lot more aggressive than people remember. So, yeah, he runs all these different looks, 4-man looks, 5-man looks, multiple coverages on the back end, morphing coverages on the back end, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Gannon didn't run any of that, I mean, pretty much where we lined up is where we played, and we relied on our pass rush to go get us 70 sacks last year. I think Sean Desai's mentality, is going to be a little bit different. I'm not saying that he's going to be aggressive. He's not going to be as aggressive as Vic Fangio would be. But I get the sense that, there's going to be some change as far as, aggressiveness and getting guys up, in wide receivers' faces a little more and putting more pressure on the receiving side of it. But, listen, the terminology may be a little bit different, but the infrastructure of what they're trying to do is probably going to be similar. So the sooner that they can correlate the terminology to the scheme, the quicker they'll be able to make that transition. Now, the jury's out. I mean, you got a new DB coach. You've added Matt Patricia to the mix. And one thing I know about guys who used to be defense coordinators, it's hard for them to give up that type of mentality. I watched it in Buffalo. Okay, Rex brought Rob in. Next thing you know, Rob was trying to run the defense, and they already had a defense coordinator. So all it did was create. It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
So can you get, can you keep that constrained? You got a new linebacker coach. Tracy Rocker is still there. But if I'm not mistaken, didn't they have like an outside linebackers coach as well? Is he still there?
He was he's the son of the guy that used to run the wide nine. What was his
Washburn.
name?
Jeremiah Washburn.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Washburn. He's there.
Yep.
Or is he gone? He's still there? I think
he's still there. Yeah.
He's still there.
So,
He's the outside linebacker guy. That's
right.
Hassan Reddick and those guys coaching.
Right. So you've got some moving pieces. There's no doubt about it, D-Gun. But OTAs, that's where the rubber meets the road. These are the guys that Nick Sirianni decided that he wanted on his staff. So they better be, not only good coaches, but they better be great teachers, because you're going to have a lot of young guys that you need to bring along. And you got a lot of moving pieces. Like you got new linebackers that all of a sudden, half of them were special teams players that hardly even played. And there's going to be this vast battle, for the other linebacker position. You got safeties. You got one, maybe two guys that's got some experience, not a lot, but then you got a couple of special teams guys that you're going to bring in that's going to be vying, for position. So a lot, there's a lot going on, but listen, the mainstay of this team is still going to be the offense.
Right.
The offense is built to be the dominant portion. That's where all the majority of the money is spent. That's where the majority of the talent is. They feel like, in order to be the team that they want to be, that they need to be a dominant, offense. And I think you saw that by the way that they let players exodus off this defense and went about their business to replenish it with talent, after the Super Bowl last year.
Seth, how much more advanced, or correct me if you don't agree with that, but is Jalen Carter than Jordan Davis either was coming in last year or is now, in your estimation?
Well, it's light years. It's light years, Rob, just because, Jalen Carter's a complete player. We still don't know whether Jordan Davis can rush the passer. Now, we know that he can eat up a double team. We know that he can play the run. We know that he can dominate if you try to block him one-on-one. But we don't know whether he can rush the passer or not. We know that Jalen Carter can rush the passer. We know that Jalen Carter, you put him in a 3 technique, that guard, they better run away from him. We know that he can dominate. And, when you play in the SEC and you play in 2 national championships games back to back, you're playing the best of the best. So if you're playing the best of the best, he's more prepared for the NFL level from a physical and a talent standpoint, in my opinion, than Jordan Davis is. Physically, Jordan Davis is just a bigger body. But man, when you watch Jalen Carter play, I mean, his lower unit, man, you're not moving him either.
Right.
But he also has the feet and the explosive hands to dominate the line of scrimmage and hold a gap, to get upfield. Like if they want to cut half the field off on a known running play, he can take the gap and take the cut back away. where that guy has to hit it front side and stay front side, you know, or he's running right into Jalen Carter. When you double team him, a lot of times, you know, when Barry was on the show last night, he was talking about it. When you double team, you know, you're trying to, if the guy's in the gap, he's in the 3 technique, and you double team, they're trying to push you off the ball, one, and the inside guy, they're trying to allow him to work up to get head to head so the outside guy can get off and get to the next level. Jalen Carter doesn't allow that to happen because, you know, because his footwork is so great. He stays right in between, wedged in between the double team. So when that guy decides to go off second level, a lot of times he never makes it because they don't get enough push. And if he does, he just falls off and he's in the gap. And you know, there's not a lot of players. There's not a lot of players that can do it. I mean, I wish I could show you on film, you know, what this guy does. That just zoom in and show you that. There's not a lot of players that can do that, man. There's not a lot because you got 600 pounds pushing on 300. You know, and it's not like he's Jordan Davis's size. He's just got such a great lower center of gravity that you can't do with him what you want to do with him.
That's the biggest thing, man. But well, you know, they did a great job in this first day. You know what I'm saying? They got 2 really, really good defensive players. Everybody they got my Christmas list.
They beat.
Yo.
I ain't even gonna watch today and tomorrow. I don't even care.
That's done. He's done.
Well, that's what I was gonna get to.
That's why he dropped the mic and walked off today.
I'm going golfing today and tomorrow.
Yeah, he just I don't know about you going golfing in all this rain out here, man.
But you know what? From this point on, I mean, I think they'll get back to basics again, getting back to the offensive line, getting off offensive side of the ball, giving them their kudos now. Wouldn't you think they would go heavy offense now?
Listen, everybody wanted, you know, Paris Johnson Smith. Everybody wanted Skoronski.
Yeah, Skoronski, yeah.
I would say, listen, Lane ain't going nowhere anytime soon.
No.
You know, Joe Malata ain't going nowhere anytime soon. I would assume the place where I'm most concerned is guard depth.
Yeah.
You know, we may need some depth there, but we also need what I like to see the Eagles do is draft some players at safety and maybe linebacker. It may not happen this year. Maybe we can get a linebacker in maybe the 3rd or the 4th round next year, you know, to complement Nakobe Dean if he steps into his talent. But I'd like to see them go and get some players, man, that can be on the defensive side of the ball, foundational players that's going to be here for a while. Go get some guys that have some talent. You know, I don't want to see, you know, they need safeties and they need linebackers. You know, I'm talking proven guys. I'm talking guys that you can bring in and you got talented coaches that get it, that can take that kid and work with him on his skill set and turn him into, you know, a player that can be a mainstay here for the next 5 or 6 years. You know, they can get through, you know, maybe 2 contracts. In reality, that's what I like to see. I think that, you know, I don't know that you have to draft high all the time as far as the offensive line is concerned. They may be able to get a guy in the 4th or the 5th round.
Stoutland University.
That just exactly, and let Stoutland do what he does. Yep. You know, because if he can take 3-4 years and develop, you know, a guy who never played professional football before, he can take a guy who's played before, who's got the right mentality, but just skill sets might be just, you know, a little under where you'd like to have it, and turn him into something. But that's the next step for the Eagles is development, because especially on the defensive side, what you've seen is they piecemeal a lot across the board over the years. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Kazir White, you know, even our 2 cornerbacks, they don't belong to us via our draft. Right. You know, we signed those guys in free agency. You know, I'd like to see us be able to draft some players that would be foundational players down the road, and we develop them but we own them from the word go, and we bring them along, as we go along.
Yeah.
Seth, do you see them taking a flyer on another young running back in the draft?
You know what, man? I listen. I like to listen to what coaches say, man. And when I heard Nick Sirianni talk about Trey Sermon, and Trey Sermon at Oklahoma wasn't no joke. Now, I get the NFL is a whole different deal, and they probably need, even though they don't feel that way, because they had an opportunity to bring back what's Jordan from the Chicago Bears.
Howard.
Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
He didn't land anywhere last year, but you had an opportunity to bring him back as a bigger back last year, and they opted to, go with what they had. It got them to the Super Bowl. They didn't have no big back, no big bruiser, at running back last year. So to be honest with you, D-Gun, I don't know that I even see them making another move at running back. Listen, you got Kenneth Gainwell. Listen, first of all, no running back is going to get more than 16 to 18 carries a game anyway.
No.
Okay. The thing that they lacked the most was the running back addition in the passing game last year. Okay. So you add a running back who, when he's healthy, and Rashard Penny can be pretty dominant. I think they're extremely high on Kenneth Gainwell, the way he played.
Yep.
The last quarter of the season and through the playoffs. I think he's the reason that Miles Sanders ain't here. And then you got Boston Scott, the giant killer, and if given more opportunity, he'd probably slay some other teams. And then you add to the mix a guy like Trey Sermon, who they pretty much hit on IR all last year to get him healthy because they didn't really need him.
Yeah.
And now you'll get a chance to see him do his thing. And maybe a guy who was, spent some time in the system that now understands the system. So I don't know that there's this great need for them, D-Gun, to go and get a running back. Maybe you sign a free agent guy, who your scouts or who Howie may like, and you bring him in and you see, how he competes. But I don't think that, I don't think a lot of teams really believe in this, you need a bruiser back or a short yardage or a goal line back anymore.
Not anymore.
I just think they're content to go with, what they have.
Yep.
Remember back in the day, you had guys like Emmitt Smith, was coming out of the backfield. They used to be the running backs made the same amount of money as quarterbacks.
Yeah.
All that's changed now, bro.
Yeah.
All that's
different world.
The days of the Moose Johnsons and all these bruising backs, those days are gone. And when you look at this Eagles offense, they had running backs by committee. They finished number 5 in the NFL in rushing, averaging almost $150 a game. Without the likes of Jonathan Taylor, Kareem Hunt, Derrick Henry, they didn't need those kind of backs.
Yeah.
And look at what they did. And the running game was not the primary focus of this offense. Right. And they still were running for $150.
And that's the problem. That's why you don't get them, because you don't get a running back at pick number 8 like they did here.
Exactly.
Bijan wouldn't play until he'd have 4 carries in the first half.
Yeah.
Then he'd get all his carries in the second half because we passed to open up the run.
Yes.
That's what we do.
I would until it doesn't work, and then they go back to the run. B, you know how they do.
Right.
The only exception I would make, if I could get Kareem Hunt at a bargain price, I'd take that dude right now.
In a second.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I have coveted him ever since Kansas City let him go.
Right.
I said when they let him go, I was like, sign him, put him in a program, hide him and stash him away, until you get him where you need to get him. Because trust me, that dude is a complete package.
Yep.
At running back.
Yeah.
He can block, he can run, he can catch.
Got attitude.
And he's hungry. You know what I'm saying? Because he pissed off a lot of money, man. A lot of money.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, I would love to get that dude. And I'm looking at the comments as we, Duck Wynn said, he doesn't come cheap. He's a free agent. Dude's out on the street.
Yeah, the longer he sits, the cheaper.
The Yeah.
Long
The
as
long,
it's
the
ready.
longer he stay out there, the cheaper he gonna get.
That's
Right.
You know, and when you
Right.
look at the kind of money that most running backs sign for, you know, you probably somewhere down the line you probably can get him for like $1.5 million,
Mhm.
2 million.
What's the veteran minimum for vet? 2.5, something like that.
Well, and the other thing is DeAndre Swift is clearly on the trade block. They took Gibbs at 12, and the GM didn't even really make any bones about it. He basically said, "Yeah, he's still under contract. We love him, but ... You
They're
know,
getting calls from teams right now.
I mean, the only problem is he has a tough time staying on the field. He's talented, but he has a tough time staying on the field.
And I think that's the reason why they made the pick, but I don't know that Gibbs's frame gives them the flexibility to say,
agree.
okay, well, this is the guy, you know, we're gonna go with him no matter what. I think they're still gonna need both of them, you know, in order to get to where they want to get to.
Yeah. Yep.
They got the second.
I didn't like Detroit's draft at all, man. I thought that they were a team on the ascent, but what they drafted last night was a head scratcher, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. No doubt. Seth, listen, man, thanks. Great job last night. It was a lot of fun down there at Ocean.
Appreciate you, bro.
We had a blast
You got
doing the draft show with you, and good hanging with you today, man. Thanks for a
All
couple
good.
minutes.
All
All right.
Have a good day,
Take
man.
care. That is Seth Joyner. Yeah, good stuff there, guys. All right, let's come back. Let's continue with the draft talk. We're actually going to look ahead to tonight, too. I mean, there's still a lot of good players out there, guys, that could help the Eagles in a lot of different ways. And let's dig a little bit into this tampering thing with Jonathan Gannon, because it's got a lot of people ticked off, as if they needed another reason to be angry at Jonathan Gannon. So we'll talk about that as well. A lot of ground to cover, man, and let's keep it rolling. Tell a friend. We're not going anywhere. We're going to keep talking about the birds in the draft. He's Derek. He's Barrett. I'm Rob. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I'm going to tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to find and trust with your finances can be a tough thing, can be a scary thing. I'm right there at the front of the line, but I found that right person. I found the person to trust with my finances, and I want you to as well, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business and you're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground there. It's another resource that Jim can help you with. Personally, I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could also email him as well, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.